Since becoming the interim president of Burkina Faso, Africa's youngest president, Ibrahim Traoré, has been keeping to his promise of transforming the country and ensuring a better life for his people. He has already launched and embarked on multiple developmental projects, as well as following up with projects that were launched before he rose to power. Ibrahim Traoré rose to the limelight a few months ago and has already made a lot of headlines, either for his outspoken nature, his dedication to the military uniform which he wears everywhere, or his way of greeting his peers and colleagues. The rest of the world, especially France, might not like him, but Burkinabés love him.
What if I told you that one of the poorest nations in Africa, a landlocked country long dismissed by foreign investors and powerful blocs, is about to redraw the map of West African trade forever? No, this isn't a fantasy. It's real, and it's happening right now in Burkina Faso. The dry Sahel winds carry more than dust these days. They carry ambition. Steel rails now stretch across the sun-baked ground like veins of a continent coming back to life. The first locomotives won't just carry passengers or goods. They'll carry the legacy of a new African sovereignty. And it all starts with a president who wears military fatigues, not tailored suits. A former soldier, now visionary, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has greenlit a massive Pan-African rail corridor. The route? A groundbreaking railway that begins in Burkina Faso and promises to connect West Africa in ways the colonial powers never allowed. This is not just infrastructure. It's a symbol of defiance. For decades, Africa's trade routes have flowed like colonial shadows, northward, outward, dictated by ports and policies far from African control. Most landlocked countries like Burkina Faso have paid dearly in time, money, and dependency. Their exports, cotton, gold, livestock, take weeks to reach the coast, and even longer to cross bureaucratic hellscapes set up to enrich others. But what if Ouagadougou became a new heartbeat of movement? Under Traoré, Burkina Faso has launched the West African Sovereign Rail Initiative, WASRI, a 2,000-kilometer rail line starting in the heart of Burkina, set to stretch through Mali, Niger, and even as far as Ghana's southern ports. With branches planned for Togo and Côte d'Ivoire, this isn't just about transport. It's about territorial realignment. The idea is bold, but so is the moment. After cutting ties with France and expelling foreign troops, Burkina Faso joined forces with Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a powerful pivot away from ECOWAS.
Camarade président Vladimir Poutine, camarade président chef d'État africain, camarades chefs de délégation, bonjour. C'est un honneur pour moi ce matin donc de prendre la parole ici et de vous passer donc le salut fraternel du peuple du pays des hommes intègres. C'est aussi le lieu pour moi, avant tout propos, de rendre grâce à Dieu, Dieu Tout-Puissant qui nous a permis de nous réunir ici ce matin en bonne santé pour parler de l'avenir et du bien-être donc de nos peuples. Je m'en vais m'excuser auprès des anciens que je pourrais vexer dans mes propos à venir. Africanité oblige, les droits d'aînesse, je me dois de m'excuser. Camarades, j'ai quelques questions donc de ma génération, mille et une questions qu'on se pose. Mais nous n'avons pas de réponse. Et il se trouve qu'ici, nous pouvons laver donc notre linge sale parce qu'on se sent en famille. On se sent en famille en ce sens que la Russie est une famille aussi pour l'Afrique. C'est une famille parce que nous avons la même histoire. La Russie a consenti d'énormes sacrifices pour libérer le monde du nazisme pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Les peuples africains, nos grands-pères, ont été déportés de force aussi pour aider l'Europe à se débarrasser du nazisme. Nous partageons la même histoire en ce sens que nous sommes les peuples oubliés du monde. Qu'ils soient dans les livres d'histoire, dans les documentaires ou films, on tend donc à balayer le rôle prépondérant qu'a joué la Russie et de l'Afrique dans cette lutte contre le nazisme. Nous sommes ensemble parce que actuellement nous sommes là pour parler de l'avenir de nos peuples, de ce qui va advenir demain, de ce monde libre auquel nous aspirons, de ce monde sans ingérence dans nos affaires internes. Nous avons les mêmes perspectives et je souhaite que ce sommet soit l'occasion donc de pouvoir tisser de très bonnes relations en vue d'un meilleur avenir de nos peuples. Les questions que mes générations se posent sont les suivantes, si je peux me résumer. C'est de ne pas comprendre comment l'Afrique, avec tant de richesses sur notre sol, avec une nature généreuse, de l'eau, du soleil en abondance, l'Afrique est aujourd'hui le continent le plus pauvre. L'Afrique est un continent affamé. Et comment se fait-il que les chefs d'État traversent donc le monde à mendier? Voici des questions que nous nous posons et que nous n'avons pas de réponse jusque-là. Nous avons l'occasion de tisser de nouvelles relations. Et j'espère que ces relations puissent être les meilleures pour donner un meilleur avenir à nos peuples. Ma génération me charge aussi de dire que, par ce fait de pauvreté,
What followed were sanctions, suspensions, and media hysteria. But quietly, away from headlines, these nations began building, and this railway is perhaps the clearest sign that the AES isn't just a political bloc. It's a blueprint for an entirely new regional order. To understand how radical this is, let's rewind. The existing rail networks in West Africa were never designed for African integration. Built during colonial times, they served one purpose: extract raw materials and send them to Europe. The tracks led outward, never inward, never across, never in unity. Today, Traoré and his allies are flipping that logic. Initial construction has already begun in Fadangourma, a town not far from the Niger border. Chinese engineers, Russian consultants, and Burkinabe workers are laying the foundation for something that hasn't been seen in post-independence Africa. A transnational infrastructure project born of African ambition, not foreign directives. And here's the catch. It's being paid for, not by the World Bank or IMF loans, but through sovereign mining revenues and new barter agreements with global allies. Gold for steel, lithium for trains. The terms are still confidential, but insiders suggest deals with Russia, China, and even Turkey are in motion. Many in the West call it risky, but for the AES, it's survival. Because this isn't just about logistics, it's about economic escape. Every year, Burkina Faso loses over $1.2 billion due to poor transport infrastructure, border delays, and corrupt port fees in coastal countries. A unified railway could slash that in half, empowering small-scale farmers, enabling regional exports, and connecting markets that were once just dots on a broken map. But this move has stirred more than dust. ECOWAS leaders, especially those still aligned with France, are not pleased. Some worry that the railway, and the AES more broadly, is a threat to the old regional balance. Behind closed doors, there's talk of counter-projects, alternative corridors, and pressure on lenders to block access to rail technology. Meanwhile, locals in Burkina Faso are witnessing something surreal. Generations who've never seen a working train now hear engines in the distance. Young boys gather near construction sites, pointing and dreaming. Elders whisper that this feels like the Sankara days, when Burkina dreamed with its eyes open. But this time, it's not just about dreams. It's about logistics, sovereignty, and a continent standing taller. This new railway will connect West Africa, and it all starts in Burkina. Steel, sovereignty, and the shadow war for the Sahel. By the time the sun rises over Koulikoro, just across the Burkinabe border in southern Mali, the sound of welding and drilling echoes over the horizon. This is no ordinary construction site. It's the staging ground for Phase 2 of the West African Sovereign Rail Initiative, WASRI, a rail artery intended to slice across the Sahel, built not with colonial oversight but with African intent. The stakes? Higher than most realize. What's unfolding here is more than a transportation project. It's a geopolitical reconfiguration, a direct answer to centuries of imposed dependency. To some, it's just steel and gravel. But to Mali's prime minister, the railway is a declaration of independence that cannot be undone. So why are global powers watching this so closely? Because railways change everything. They transform how goods move, yes, but also how power flows. Railways dictate where cities grow, where ports become valuable, and where military mobility becomes possible. In a region where France once dictated every lane of movement, the idea that African leaders are redrawing the map, without foreign consultants, is revolutionary. And revolutions rarely go unanswered. The ECOWAS dilemma. As the rails press deeper into Mali and plans are finalized for extension into Niger's Arlit mining region, ECOWAS leaders are scrambling behind closed doors. What began as political posturing against the AES bloc, suspensions, frozen bank assets, border closures, has now turned into a full-blown strategic crisis. According to leaked diplomatic cables, Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire, and Senegal have all raised concerns about regional destabilization. But what they fear isn't chaos, it's competition. For decades, coastal nations like Ghana and Ivory Coast have acted as logistical choke points for landlocked neighbors. Warehouses, port fees, trucking monopolies, all profitable. But with this railway, Burkina Faso and Mali could bypass them entirely, creating internal supply chains and new commercial hubs on their own terms. Nigeria, once ECOWAS's powerhouse, is also watching cautiously. Though not physically threatened by the railway, the very idea of an alternative regional union that functions, even thrives, without ECOWAS, could trigger a domino effect of economic alliances outside its orbit. Worse still, the railway may link with a future pipeline being discussed between AES and Algeria, creating a Sahel to Mediterranean energy corridor. That would permanently weaken the ECOWAS grip on landlocked members, the secret deals behind the rails. And here's where things get even more complicated. WASRI's funding model is not traditional, no IMF loans, no Western NGOs. Instead, it's powered by resource swaps, sovereign wealth redirection, and discreet diplomatic partnerships often outside the lens of mainstream media. A leaked internal memo from the Nigerian Ministry of Commerce outlines a three-way agreement involving Russia, offering rail design and logistics, China, supplying high-tensile steel and rolling stock, Burkina Faso, paying through joint lithium ventures in its Tambao region. These partnerships are seen as dangerous by former colonial powers, particularly France, which still considers the Sahel its strategic backyard. The presence of Russian engineers and Chinese-built locomotives has stirred a backlash in Paris and Brussels. Just last month, French media accused the AES of outsourcing sovereignty to non-democratic regimes. But inside Ouagadougou, few care about the West's opinion. And then, there's Algeria, a silent but pivotal player. Though not part of ECOWAS or the AES, Algeria has opened dialogue with Mali and Niger to connect this railway to its southern border. The goal? Access to the Trans-Saharan Highway and Mediterranean ports. This northward extension would finally give Sahel nations a second coastal outlet, bypassing Atlantic bottlenecks altogether. Suddenly, the map of Africa doesn't just have one backbone. It's gaining a new spine from the Sahel to the sea, the human side of the rails. But for all the geopolitical drama, the true measure of this railway lies in the stories along the tracks. In Kaya, Burkina Faso, farmers who once waited weeks for fertilizers now watch cargo trains pull up weekly. Their tomatoes and sorghum, once spoiled in traffic, now arrive fresh in urban markets. In Gao, Mali, a city known more for conflict than commerce, job sites buzz with young engineers, bricklayers, women in logistics, and barefoot boys sweeping gravel between the tracks. One of them, a 19-year-old named Yusuf, had never seen a train before. Now he's training to be a locomotive mechanic.
It's like the country woke up, he says. Before we waited, now we build.
And it's not just men. At a construction hub outside Niamey, 22-year-old Aissatou leads a team of all-female technicians managing electrical cabling for rail. Perhaps more than anything is the true revolution, not the steel, not the money, but the shift in identity. People across Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, long told their fate was to export raw goods and import debt, are now laying foundations for a different future. Sabotage, surveillance, and the struggle for control. Not all revolutions happen in the open. By day, the construction of the West African Sovereign Rail Initiative looks like progress welding torches lighting up the sky. Engineers working around the clock, machinery rolling across the Sahel. But by night, the shadows move differently. Somewhere near Marcoy, close to the mining frontier between Burkina Faso and Niger, work was halted for 72 hours, not due to the weather, not for lack of funding, but because of something far more dangerous, a drone hovering above the site, unmanned, unclaimed, and highly sophisticated. The site team called in security. 2 hours later, military patrols confirmed that the drone's signal did not originate from any known African military base. Speculation began immediately. Foreign surveillance. Who's watching, and why? This isn't the first time sabotage or surveillance has disrupted the railway project. In early May, unexplained software bugs disabled signaling systems imported from China. A week later, 2 bridges under construction in Niger collapsed within days of each other. The official report said structural weakness. But internally, documents suggest possible external interference, with signs of tampering before the incidents. Suddenly, what was once a massive infrastructure project is now surrounded by whispers of a shadow war. Resistance beneath the surface. Let's be clear, not everyone wants this railway completed. WASRI represents a direct threat to the economic influence of countries and corporations that have long profited from African disunity. It bypasses toll-dependent coastal nations, weakens French-aligned port systems, and introduces a rail-based logistics network powered by non-Western tech and African governance. And that's enough to make enemies. Several international shipping firms with interests in the Gulf of Guinea have already lobbied against WASRI's expansion. Leaked memos show executives warning that rail-based intra-African transport could render many West African ports economically obsolete within a decade. Some analysts believe private military contractors, many with deep ties to foreign mining firms, are now active in the region. One security report from Mali mentions sightings of non-African personnel with encrypted radios loitering near new tunnel construction in the Dogon Plateau. It's not just economic, it's territorial, politics, and it's spiritual too, for some. Across Mali and Burkina Faso, certain elites, trained in former colonial academies and aligned with foreign interests, see this project as a threat to their old loyalties. The railway is not just a train, one former minister said off the record. It's a declaration that we no longer need permission to move forward. The media silence. Perhaps what's most striking is how little coverage this story is receiving in mainstream Western media. Think about it. A multi-billion-dollar rail network crossing volatile regions, uniting nations previously deemed unstable, is being built, largely without the input of the West, and the world barely blinks. Why? According to several media watchdogs, certain outlets have received editorial guidance to frame the AES bloc as unpredictable and militarized, deflecting attention from their infrastructural achievements. In contrast, internal reports from Al Jazeera, Anadolu Agency, and RT Africa provide detailed updates, suggesting a clear East versus West narrative shift. It's not the first time global perception has been weaponized, but this time, Africa is pushing back. In a defiant move, Burkina Faso's Ministry of Information launched a new media initiative, dubbed Rails of Truth, broadcasting drone footage of the construction, interviews with workers, and weekly progress maps, all in local languages and French. The content is raw, unfiltered, and reaching millions through WhatsApp, Telegram, and TikTok. "Let them ignore us," said a Burkinabe spokesperson. "We'll tell our own story." A border, a bomb, a message. Then came the incident that couldn't be buried. 2 weeks ago, near the Burkina Faso-Niger border, an explosive device was discovered buried under a rail segment yet to be laid. It was defused before detonation, but the implications were chilling. It wasn't a crude IED, it was a high-grade remote-triggered charge. No group claimed responsibility. But intelligence services believe it was meant to send a message, that this railway, this dream, would be opposed, no matter the cost. And yet, work resumed the next day. This is the unspoken reality. Traoré, Goïta, and Niger's General Tiani know they're playing a dangerous game. The rail is not just a structure, it's a line in the sand. Build it, and Africa's intertrade networks could flourish, for the first time on its own terms. Stop it, and the continent falls back into fragmented silence. The people push forward. Despite the danger, the energy on the ground remains unshaken. In small towns like Zabre, women are forming co-ops to prepare food for construction crews. In Tillaberi, Nigerian schoolchildren now use rail schematics as part of their math lessons. This railway has become more than logistics. It's an emblem of dignity, labor, and a future that doesn't ask for permission. As one Mali construction foreman put it, "We know they're watching. We know they're trying to stop us, but every meter of track we lay is a victory, not just for us, but for the Africa our children will inherit." Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe now.